Hello everybody and welcome to their list video with me and Daniel from Quick Learner. Today we're going to be talking about 10 forgotten Arkham Horror the card game cards. And this was, I got to give credit where credit's due, this was actually your idea.
Yeah.
And
I
I
was
think,
thinking,
yeah.
yeah, I was thinking that, what are some cards when I kind of thumb through on Arkham DB, Arkham Build, like, that I'm like, oh gosh, that card exists? Right. I forgot about that one.
Yeah. And it's actually, I think the card that is first on the list here today was actually, I think, one of the ones that inspired this. So that's pretty exciting. These cards aren't necessarily here just because they are bad, right? These cards are also here because they are actually just like forgotten, whether it be in discussions on like social media and like content creators on our channel, or even just like when we play, right? You kind of just go through the binder and you're like, oh yeah, this card exists. So let's dive in and start with your first one, which is...
This is Police Badge, and I was surprised at how many cards, when I was looking through, were really in the core set, and I maybe even just forgot that they're in the core set, and this is a good candidate. In general, these cards are going to be like, maybe they were played back in the day, or there was more discussion about them, and now it's just like either there's better things to do, or maybe the designers haven't really thought about the card much anymore, and the card just doesn't really fit into any niche anymore. Like maybe back in the day, York was interested in doing a recursion thing with this, but I don't know, like we don't hear about that anymore. I think there's just better or other interesting things to recur than just like sometimes getting a few extra actions and in the meantime getting +1 brain.
Yeah.
It's not a bad card. It's just I have never thought about putting it in a deck recently.
Yeah.
Maybe Carson, but even so.
Even then, he probably can find something better for his accessory slot. Because I agree, it's not a bad card, but it's like a very fair card, which kind of just makes it... Why would you play like a fair card that you have to spend 2 experience on when you can just play like a good card that is like 0 experience, right? Because like now we also... People are running... It's apparently my brain is just gone. The Ancestral token, that you can put the Blessed tokens in your accessory slot. People are just running that instead of something else in their accessory slot, right? Like that's kind of the state that this card now lives in, right? Where people are going to just run a 0 cost card that you get more value in the long term than this, which is kind of like, you picture it as kind of like either a combo piece that doesn't have a combo for it, or alternatively just early Arkham design that is now since, as you said, been forgotten by the designers.
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly as a player when you should play this, because like you're spending an action and 3 resources, which is kind of steep for a temporary boost, and then you have to figure out, hey, later I actually want to take 2 extra actions, or someone else does, and like when do you make it pop? Like there's a decision making there that is just completely gone when you play a better card that is just like it always works, right?
Yeah.
Ancestral token being a good example. Holy Rosary 2, right?
Yep.
Actually has the soak that seems pretty good for Guardians, I'd say.
Yep.
So I mean, so does Ancestral Token. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's a fine card, but I just don't reach for it.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions that I think would be a fun talking point. The first one is the joke one. We'll get it out of the way. Do you think it costs 3 because the badge says 3?
Yes, exactly. That's what it is.
And 2, do you think that there's any chance, because I think this would be really cool, now that we're in current, the designers are going to look at what's in the core set and be like, how can we expand on this in expansions? Because it's going to be one of the environments that they're actually playing with and testing with now. So rather than being like, there's so many cards to think about, there's a lot less cards for them to think about. And do you think that maybe we could potentially see them explore Police Badge working for a Guardian type of deck? I think that could be potentially cool.
That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that. So yes, I just worry about, are they going to balance new cards around this existing, or are they going, because to me it's a little bit overpriced, or are they going to make more cards that synergize with the core set cards that have otherwise like fallen out of favor? So
yeah,
maybe so. Like again, I think the willpower is a good thing to have, but
yeah.
I wish that there was like maybe more recursion in Guardian then to make this work better,
Yeah.
instead of relying on off-class stuff. So maybe new cards that would come in to make this more relevant would help with recursion in Guardian. I mean, we're getting that a little bit with um, the Book of War, right? That
Yep.
recurs events. So maybe there's going to be some ways to recur other sorts of things in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's actually a very interesting point. And whenever we can actually start talking about current, because it's still kind of just in like a weird nebulous state, how they balance, I think, is going to be very important, because is everything going to get weaker because they want to fit with the core set? But the core set's very strong, or are they going to just go for like the strong parts of the core set? So that's something that'll be remain to be seen. And I think Police Badge is a very good example of a core set card that I would love to see them expand on in this new format for how they're designing.
Right.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much to say about Police Badge.
Yeah, and the rest of them we're just going to blur through. All right, let's go to my number 5 here, which is also a Guardian card. We have Lightning Gun. 6 cost, 5 experience. Use 3 ammo, spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +5 fist for this attack, and it deals +2 damage. Takes up 2 hand slots. And this card was hype as hell when it first came out, because it was a lightning gun that just shot lightning, right? It dealt 3 damage, which was really sick. It gave you +5, which is an insane amount of damage. But, like all big Guardian weapons, it eventually just fell out of favor for melee weapons. Sorry, I should say firearm weapons. Like, melee weapons, just in the Guardian class, ended up eating too much of the pie. I do think that Lightning Gun is a little bit overcosted to what we expect now. With that said, I do think that Guardians have a lot of way to reduce things that they're playing for, that it makes it like a little bit easier to find. And I also think that Guardian economy has gotten better as well. But I think these are all the big reasons why Lightning Gun ultimately just fell out of favor. It was a capstone to your deck, to your game plan, to your way to kill enemies, that just became overcosted when you could just like swing a Cyclopean hammer and just knock things into the stratosphere, or use a runic axe and like just heal a bunch of horror while also getting clues or doing like damage to everybody or moving while attacking. Yeah. Or even earlier, just using a machete in the final scenario. Because that is what happened pretty quick after Lightning Gun was released. It had like a day in the sun when it first came out for Dunwich, and then maybe some of Carcosa. Like Mark Harrigan, we played like a Mark Harrigan with a lightning gun. But I think overall, it was just like outclassed, and it's led this card to actually, like when I was going through, I was like, oh yeah, lightning gun. I remember the bar because it's bad, but you can play it in Leo. I remember the Springfield because it's just straight up bad. And then we have the lightning gun, which is not bad, but it's not good, which means that it's just like forgotten.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Springfield also came out in this cycle, I think. Right?
Yep.
And this one also gets printed in the same cycle for I don't know what reason. Like it's a better version, but the problem with these high XP weapons, especially the firearms, really, is that once you've fired all the ammo, you're like, now what? I've spent all of my resources and XP on this, and I have to come up with a different solution. And yeah, you can refill things. So I think they've remembered these cards in the sense that there's new cards that add ammo. There's the custom modifications that try to make these things better. And yet, this one is still like, you might as well just do that with a cheaper weapon, right? You might as well do it with your 45 automatic, or even just a level 2 version, and load up on those. But here's the other thing. I know you've talked about this a lot. It's also forgotten because all of the emphasis has been on the rogue class weapons that are firearms. And this is just like hanging out here saying, I'm here too. But now we're just, I mean, if you're playing Michael McGlenn, like, why do you play this? You just play all the ones that are in rogue anyway. So.
Yes. Yeah. And it's one of those things that, if we look at where the shift happened for when Rogue became the big weapon class, it was when Swift Reload was printed. Because while Swift Reload and Extra Ammunition do the same thing for this card in terms of the ammo that it puts on the card, it meant that suddenly they could dream so much bigger with Rogue weapons, because that now, like, it was able to be refilled to the top And it's why, for example, the Gatling gun is going to perform much better than the M1918 bar, right? So it's like, it's an interesting thing for how like the little small card printings can change the like design, like the course of design for these cards.
So this one is not in the core, but we actually don't know what's going to be evergreen. I mean, it's very possible Dunwich is. I kind of doubt it, but
Yeah.
you know, if they were to reprint or do something similar to this in the future, a big Guardian gun, how do you think they can make such a card not forgotten?
That's a great question. So I think that like what they need to do is they need to get rogue with it, right? Where they need to be a little bit weird. And I think that's why the Remington has proven to be so successful of a design and also a card to play with, is because the Guardians got a weapon that wasn't just 2 lines of text that say what the card does, right? And I think that's kind of like where we're at with this. So I feel like they need to get a little bit funky with it to have that like work, right? Like I think for example, sorry.
Yeah, you know they forgot to put flavor text on this one, right? They
Yeah.
had the 2 lines of text, and then they're just like, I guess we're done.
Yeah, this is ship it. Yeah, yeah. All right. Should we go to your number 4?
Sure.
We got.
This is Flare, and this is a survivor card that does a lot of things. And it's also in Dunwich at Tactic, which I guess is kind of cool now. But you can either fight and get +3 fist and deal +2 damage to this attack, and then you exile it, or you search the top 9 cards of any investigator's deck for an ally asset, put it into play under your control, then you exile Flare also, which is a really nice way to like pull out an ally or something. You know, you get a Leo DeLuca or something in someone's deck, and you just play it for nothing. Well, I guess you spend the 2. But this is a good card, and I know that PBG talked this card up a lot back in the day, made a lot of list videos of it being like really good. And recently I've heard nothing about this card. I think it's just kind of forgotten among most people, just because I think you can do these sorts of effects with other cards without the exile effect. And the other reason I'm bringing this up in the video is that I think exile itself has been forgotten by basically everyone.
Yeah.
And that makes this card a lot worse. I know it's just 1 XP, but personally these days, I think you can get away with spending all of your XP normally in Survivor. There's so many things you can spend your XP on that rebuying a card like this, I mean, it's not that bad, but I don't think there's enough support for Exile to make this worth it in the long run. You might as well just play Brute Force for the top effect and, I don't know, Chance Encounter for the bottom effect.
So I agree that the discourse on this card has softened, but I actually still play this card quite a bit. So does Travis. Travis also really is now like a lot hotter on the card. So I don't have much to add for the Forgotten, because it's just like it is. Like the first top attack is like a really good kill spell, right? Most recently, Eric actually ran this in Dream Eaters and used it to finish off the final boss in one half of the scenario. But I think that your comment on the exile being forgotten is so true. Like, we have Deja Vu, but I think unfortunately it just costs too much experience. And most of the exile cards are kind of just living in a place where you buy them in a scenario, the last scenario, right?
Exactly, yeah. And that's how I feel about this one too, is like you definitely can play it in the last couple scenarios, but I don't think it's part of my game plan to be just buying this over and over again.
Yeah, the archetype is just like basically not worth it, which is crazy because the exile cards are very strong and exiling them is very strong, but it's just like ultimately it's just like, why bother? At a certain point, like you said, you either don't need to put them in your deck because you are buying other things in Survivor, or you can just actually get by without using Deja Vu, right? Because with Deja Vu, you need to get at least 6 experience for you to actually feel something with it, which is a lot of experience.
And you can't do that scenario 1 or maybe even 2, right? Because you need the exile deck cards in your deck already.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an awkward archetype.
Could you, I actually am curious. If you do aesthetic and you buy Deja Vu and a bunch of exile cards, but does that work if you only do 3 XP worth? Interesting. That's not for this video.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think what's really to go on the what is forgotten for me about Flare, even though I still play it, is I never do the bottom ability anymore. When I first started, I only did the bottom ability, but now I can just like put my thumb over it, and that is the card for me. It's just the top line.
You know why? I think it's because people aren't playing like Leo DeLuca in their decks as
Yep.
much either, right? So
Yep.
like if you're not playing an expensive ally, or you're not trying to like fish out of someone else's deck, then it goes down in value quite a bit.
Yep. All right. Let's go to my number 4, which is Aquinnah, the Forgotten Daughter. You said to me when we made this list is we should put Aquinnah here because she's forgotten. And then I was like, honestly, I always forget about Aquinnah, so she might make my list no matter what. I'm pretty fond of the Survivor cards. Even the bad ones like Lure and like Infighting and like Close Call. I know those cards, and I know when I would play those cards. And then I remember Aquinnah's here. And I played her once in a Daniela deck, and I regretted it. I wish it was just Jessica Hyde or Peter Sylvester, right? She has an upgraded version as well, which they added into the revised core set for reasons. They could have added so many better cards to that, but that's like a conversation for a whole different video. But the problem with Aquinnah is that she kind of just doesn't do anything really. She's like this weird design when enemies matter more. Albeit, I mean, with that said, actually, now that I'm thinking about her, she could be really good in Drowned City with some of the enemies that exist in there. But like, there's so many like little things that just make her so that she's like, I don't even, if you put a gun to my head like with before this video and you said what does Aquinnah do, I would probably have my brains splattered against the wall, right? Like I would be dead. I do not know what she does. I do not think she is good. She costs five resources. She is my Survivor Forgotten card because she just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, speaking of expensive allies from Flare, like I guess maybe they built around this costing 5. Like what on earth is going on? Why even print such an expensive ally that doesn't do anything, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like you could definitely see the initial design of philosophy, which was very much that enemies are going to become overwhelming, right? Like we have when the core concept of this game was shooting a 45 automatic at enemies, and that machete was supposed to have a downside, right? This kind of makes more sense. Same with things like survival instinct and even like infighting, right? Even like Lure, when there was like enemy management mattered more, but then you realize, oh, I can just use my machete and kill things, and there's like no multiple enemies on the board, right? Yeah.
The big turnoff for me on this one is, well, I'm sorry, there's two big turnoffs. One is that it costs you horror, and then you take horror anyway, right? In order to do this, you have to deal 1 horror to her, so it's a little bit like a B cop or guard dog thing, but unlike guard dog, you take the horror and put it somewhere, presumably on your investigator card because you're already using your ally slot, and in the core set, what else did you have? Elder Sign Amulet? I don't think so. So like what exactly is going on here? Maybe it's okay for what's her name, Agnes, but I'm kind of skeptical on that one.
Agreed.
And then the other part, of course, is that you're dealing the damage to another enemy. I guess it doesn't say different enemy, so maybe it's like another another ghoul minion or something.
But then you still need to have 2.
You still need to have two enemies. But upgraded one is much better, but then that's 3 XP down the drain. So
yes, yeah. All right, let's move on to number 3, which is
Think on Your Feet. So this is another early card. So this one allows you to, when an enemy spawns at your location, immediately move to another location, and then it spawns at that previous location. I think it's actually a nice card. It's just one that I've never seen anyone talk about, partly because it lives in the shadow of Elusive from the core set, which kind of does this, but better. and there's one exception. I think it's a nice card for Monterey Jack
Mhm.
if you're not trying to deal with enemies because it does proc your ability. But otherwise, like this is a card slot that I don't know, you could be doing so much else with,
Yep.
and I've never heard people talk about putting in their deck on purpose other than just for Monterey Jack.
Yeah, I used to when I did play True Solo back in the day. I liked this in True Solo because it basically killed an enemy in the earlier scenario, early campaigns. But then it had a problem where every enemy suddenly learned how to hunt,
Exactly.
and this card is basically useless because of that, right? Like everything having Hunter is a nightmare for like
Yeah.
cards like this. Yeah, I
And
think this was a great choice.
I think this doesn't even work with Fox Mask anymore, right? Because that the enemy spawns like after you leave.
Yes, yeah, that would make sense.
So
Yeah,
it doesn't really work in the current rogue card pool where I think rogues want to be in locations with enemies in the first place and then leave. So like think about Trish, think about uh, Lucius. Basically, everyone wants to be with an enemy, evade it, or do something tricksy with it, and then get out of there.
yeah,
So I don't think it works anymore.
yeah. I agree. I agree. All right, well, that's quick and easy for that one. There's not much to
Yeah.
talk about there. So let's go to my number 3, which is Cat Burglar, otherwise known as Cat Bug. 4 cost, 1 experience. Gives you a foot, and you can also, like, do a baby elusive
Yeah.
away from enemies. This guy, I think the saving grace for him is that he is the cheapest way to get foot as an ally in Rogue, right? So, like, that is, like, why I don't think he's fully forgotten. But I do think that Catbug has been kind of just in the shadows and the closest we've had to like forgotten since he's been released. And a big reason for that is in the core set we had Leo DeLuca, right? And Leo DeLuca was very, very good, right? When you're especially have a smaller collection, just getting more action is really nice, right? And then at a certain point, in Forgotten Age came out, and Catbug was like, maybe it's my turn. Maybe now I can start doing things. And then we got the strongest rogue ally, Lola Santiago. And then at that point now, Leo DeLuca is sitting here. He's just like, it's like that first time meme, but it's like Catbug like talking to to Leo DeLuca being like, first time, like you're welcome to the abyss, right? And then we got Delilah O'Rourke, which kind of further pushed Cat Burglar into obscurity. And then also, this goes very similar to the Think on Your Feet, where when enemies have Hunter, this bottom action means a lot less. Because when enemies are hunting you, you have to kill them, right? And leaving them on the board to just have to do this again next turn is not going to be worth it in the long run.
He doesn't even exhaust them, right? So
Yeah.
you're going to get attacked that same turn, that same round, unless you move again. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can do some interesting things with this. I'm sure it was sort of designed with the Devour below in mind, where you move into the main site or main path or whatever it is. All the cultists that you left behind are there. You just use the ability and go off to the ritual site, and they don't
Yeah.
come and hunt after you. So that's pretty good. But it runs into the same problem as Treasure Hunter and Hired Muscle. 1 XP allies in Rogue are just, you might as well spend the 2 extra XP and get Delilah or Lola or any other number of good allies that are at higher XP levels, because
Yeah.
you can only have so many, you can only afford so many allies in your deck. So yeah, sorry, buddy.
Yep. Yeah. I think he's good, like, for, like, his, what he gives you, right? And I think his cost is fair. I think his experience thing is fair. But he's just outclassed and has been forgotten because of that.
Would love to see a level 3 version just to make it more competitive with the other choices.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I agree. And I said, like, maybe we will. Now that we're doing current, they might look at these cards. I think this could potentially be like Police Badge, right? Where, yep, I think that would be kind of sick. All right. Let's go on to your number 2, which is...
Fear to Thame. Again, this is a card that I heard talked up back in the day. 3 cost, hand slot item in Mystic, not too contested a slot, so it seems okay. And you get a +2 skill value on any spell card, which is really good. Like, that's events also. And then there's a fight there too, just in case you want to do it. But I don't see people talking about this one at all.
Yep.
recently. Either you have other things you can play in the hand slot, or just something better to boost your spell cards in general. If you're playing Living Ink, you're playing, I don't know, upgraded Guts even.
Hmm.
There's just like so many other things that you can do, but I think this card is still like fine. It'll get the job
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
You know how in Forgotten Age there's all of those cards that give you +2 to a skill value, like Well Prepared or um, Cornered.
Yep.
The one that's the Mystic one is a bit strange, right? Because it gives you the +2 only if you draw a particular symbol token. Recall the Future, I think.
Hmm.
So it's not like it's not an active one, really. I mean, it sort
Yes.
of
Yeah.
is, but it's a little different. This one I think fills that niche better, where you just want it's not generic skill boost, but it's just a +2 on probably something every round.
Yep.
So I think it's like pretty good, but man, that bottom part is almost entirely irrelevant now, right?
Yeah, so I think like this card, yeah, like it's never really had its time in the sun because when it first came out, Ritual Candles was just like the card to play in your hand slot, right? We always said there's like no competition for the hand slots and Mystics, but there actually really was, and it was just Ritual Candles was just pushing
Yeah.
everybody down. But I think a big thing that stops Spirit of Thame from really popping is that you have to exhaust for both of them, right? Like,
True.
if the bottom action didn't exhaust, I think this card would actually just see more random play. I think another thing that makes this card forgotten is, say it with me, everybody at home, there is no Four Fist Mystic who can play this card, and that would be super nice for them to actually be able to do. And unfortunately, there still hasn't been one, but maybe one day, and I think Spirit of Thame would love effects like someone like that to wield it.
Yeah, I think that's just sort of the question about like how do mystics deal with one health enemies, right?
Hmm.
Or a cultist that spawns somewhere else, or just that third point of damage. And this was a solution.
Hmm.
It's not a great solution,
Yep.
but they printed other things that were just like, we'll just use your willpower instead. Sword King, I think, really pushed this out the window.
Yep. 100%. And trust me, I've said every expansion that this card is going to help solve the Mystic Fighter problem, and none of them have. And I think I don't think it's going to happen unless we get some like Four Fist Mystic that is able to fight just normally. All right, so I actually forgot what my Mystic card is, so that is
Perfect.
a good sign because I mean it's also a bad sign because I made this list like less than 24 hours ago. Less than 12 hours ago, anyways. But it's a good sign for this video that this card is here. So let's see what it is. Right, it's Shards of the Void. Yes, okay. Shards of the Void got this spot because when you think of mystic spells, you think of the good ones and you think of the bad ones. Song of the Dead. But you don't think of the middle one, which is Shards of the Void. The one that is I'm here too, right? It's the biggest don't forget about me energy a card has ever given out. This was here in Forgotten Age with the seal mechanic, right? Where it uses 3 charges. You can seal a 0, but you can also release zeros on it, which I think is a really cool design philosophy. And it's a good spell otherwise, but I think we all know why it was forgotten. And it's not because it's fiddly, because I actually don't think it's fiddly at all. I actually think it's gotten better over time. But I think the main reason why this card is forgotten is because there is no level 0 version. Yeah. And this was in my predictions for the Drowned City player expansion that we would have seen a level 0 version of this card. I really like Eyes of the Sleeper, Breath of the Dreamer, or vice versa, one of those two. I've played with the Clue one for the first time yesterday, and like I like them, but I would have much rather had a level 0 Shards of the Void in there as well, because I do think that, I guess it makes sense now because they probably had the context of the current and legacy environment when they were building this expansion. So it'd kind of be bad to make a level 0 version they can't upgrade into, right? But I think it ultimately is the final nail in the coffin for Shards of Void ever being like playable, where you can just like you're gonna run the other stuff that you can upgrade with the down the rabbit hole instead. I think it's just like that's the unfortunate case for Shards of the Void.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool if they had a level 5 version? So like you had to buy this, with some XP and then you got the discount later? Kind
Yeah,
of a Brand of Cthulhu sort of thing.
that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think this one is at least it's in the conversation because of Agatha now.
Yeah.
But I mean, it seems like it was forgotten by the designers where they could have just printed another version of it. I mean, we could get a reprint in the future, right? They haven't ruled that out, but they probably won't.
Yeah,
It's not a staple that they would need to say, oh yeah,
No.
let's make sure you have access to this card.
Yeah, no one's like, I'm so excited to finally play Shards of the Void. Yeah, yeah. All right, we only have the Seeker class left, and I think you had a really nice version, really nice choice for this one. So why don't you take it away for your final card for this list?
Pnakotic manuscripts, it's so expensive. 5 XP, 5 resources. Better do something really good. It does. 3 secrets, and you have a reaction ability to spend a secret during a revelation effect, so like a counter card basically in Mythos, and then you just don't reveal chaos tokens, so commit, or spend money, whatever, to pass the test. Or you just take an action to spend a secret, and then anyone at your location doesn't reveal a chaos token for the next skill test that the investigator performs this round. Really good with lots of combo pieces, but man, it's just so much. I don't ever think about this card as being a capstone to this, what Seekers can do. It's nice for like the idea of a support Seeker, but I think Necronomicon also being at the level 5 slot has just completely invalidated this thing.
Yeah, I think this card is still very good. And I think like with Enraptured too, this card also, like, I'm even like, every time I look at a card, I'm like, I should play this in Amanda with Enraptured too, right? And
or
just
Daisy,
have,
right? You get the action.
Yeah. And then like have it so that like, yeah, just like the recursion of Enraptured 2 by card draw, practice makes perfect, or other things that Seekers can do, I think is very nice. But it does cost 5 experience, and then like they kind of just like signposted that Necronomicon was what we had for 5 experience. It does cost more now with the taboo list, but it was still one of those things where like the manuscripts was like, but what about me? This was a card that Bryn was actually super high on back in the day. I believe he played it in an Ursula deck when like we first were starting to play with Ursula. I think it was like the only Ursula deck he played. But it turns out like not drawing tokens is really good, but it also turns out it's not good enough for like 5 experience and 5 resources most of the time.
Let me ask you a question. When you've played with this, I've seen it played once. I haven't actually played with myself. But I found, I can't remember if it was like Abigail or some other thing else that was refilling the secrets. I just found it kind of boring. That you sap all the tension out of the game when you're just like, I guess for the rest of the game you are not revealing any tokens, or it's not all the time, but it's at least a lot where it felt kind of boring. It's like, I guess we pass all these tests. Yeah. Yay.
It's like when we played, we did the Mystic only run during Mystic Week for the scenario, and I sealed the auto fail. And it turns out when the auto fail isn't in the bag, the game is a lot less tense, because you just are like, okay, I'll be up 4. I did it, So it turns out the auto fail is actually good for the game. And it's like taking tests and having the chance to fail is actually good for the game. Because I do agree, it is pretty boring for a play pattern. It's basically just like...
remind you of that. Next time you draw as many auto fails as we might have done at some point.
And you know what? I'll grit my teeth and I'll just say, yeah, you're right. I agree. All right, I also forgot what my Seeker card is, so that's a good sign. It is... Oh, yeah! Arcane Insight! Okay, so I actually... I love this card. I think this card is actually criminally underplayed, but I always forget about it, and then I build a deck around it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I never play the deck. And then like cut a year later, and I'm like, oh yeah, Arcane Insight! This card's so sick! And I think it's also really good with the new Enraptured too, right? I think, again, it's one of those things where you can do this thing where it's just like giving someone a -2 Shroud is really good. I think this falls into a similar thing to the manuscripts, and we made a whole video about it, about how the Seeker support class is actually really strong, but Seekers are also very good at just winning the game on their own. So why do they need to do the support thing when they can just like do it themselves? And the Arcane Insight isn't really a big enough boost. Like a magnifying glass for a turn is a powerful effect, right? It is a little bit expensive experience-wise for this card, and I think people would like it more if it was like three experience and 2 cost. I think it would live in a lot of like Seeker stacks a lot more for that, because Seekers generally don't care about the Arcane slot. But charges are now basically free. They're falling off trees. Like Daisy would love this card, right? Like to do the whole thing to support her team with, and also just like using it for herself. Min with the test at 0 stuff was the last deck that I tried to build with this. That was in a Scarlet Keys that we unfortunately got eliminated in. So I never got to bring that to fruition. But I think this card is very, very good. But it's unfortunately, there's so many things holding it back to just like the little balancing levels for like the experience and the cost that leads this card to ultimately be forgotten. I haven't seen anybody talk about it. I haven't seen anybody play it beside myself.
How about an Akachi Dragon Pole deck?
I mean, she doesn't need to use it, right? So she can use it to, she can use it for other people, and it's just like making her Dragon Pole stronger. I'd frick with that. I'd frick with that.
Okay. There was a hilarious amount of silence here. Like, what the?
Well, it's because I was looking at Arcane Insight. I was like, wait a minute, does this reduce all test difficulty? Because I was like, you're fighting with it, but no, you use it as just like you use it for other people to make their life easier. Yeah.
I mean, you can even recharge it with Enraptured 2 in her as well.
Yep. I think Enrapture 2 should lead to a lot of exploration of anything that says Charge or Secret that hasn't been played in a long time. You should do that, people at home. You should explore your card pool and not just do what I do, which is like probably play Brandicathuga. Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
That's it. That's the end. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. What are some forgotten cards that you haven't thought about or played or seen played in a while? Let me know down in the comments. Also, go give Daniel's channel a follow if you have not done that. Also, I should do a huge shout out to our patrons. Thank you for supporting the channel and for, just being awesome, as well for everyone who's watching at home. You guys all rock. Have a good one. Thanks for watching. And as always, GG's.